Hello, every pony.
Hello, everybody. Pony.
JTH.
Tails the Hero.
And this is going to be part 7 of our reaction to Princess Molestia.
Ah, my foot went numb.
Well, that's because you're singing Indian style. Try laying down like me.
I don't want to lay down.
Tough toenails.
Alright, let's start this up. All-purpose tool.
Okie dokie. Loki. I know I've not
Bit of
really
an
uploaded
intro,
a
I
video for
guess.
quite some time, but I put it off long enough, and I figure I'm gonna do. I might try to finish Princess Molestia up.
Just to interrupt,
No guarantee.
Hoovians carry around these things all the time, so if you see me, with the constant sonic screwdriver more often, it's not my fault. I'm a Hoovian.
However, when we
works.
last left off, Pinkie Pie was upset. Shit was on fire, and
What? Nothing was on fire, bro.
He was just being silly.
By the way, Doctor Who shirt.
I'm gonna finish up chapter 4 here in this video.
Okay.
He doesn't watch
That'll
Doctor Who.
be good.
Trying to get him into
What?
it, but
I'll upload more after that.
Okay, here we go with part 7.
Gently, please! Rarity gasped, her
Oh,
restraint
no.
Oh,
tightening.
God.
Oh, what's that? Harder, you say? My pleasure,
Oh, my
Celestia
God.
said, whipping Rarity's rear with the towel again. Rarity
Get up.
was tied
Stop
up,
that.
her own ribbons being used as rope while she stayed sprawled out in an embarrassing pose. She was bent over with her back legs on the floor. Her rump stuck out and upwards higher than normal, while her front legs were pulled behind her back and up into the air, the ribbons holding them
boy.
attached to the ceiling. Her rump was not bleeding, but was covered with several streaks of red marks left from the constant whipping caused by Rarity's
Oh, boy.
best and most authentic luxury towel.
Oh, God.
Celestia was in front of her, her hooves draped over her shoulders and down her back to the sides of her flank, while she occasionally dipped her head down for a few light licks, and maybe even a suck of Rarity's horn.
oh,
Oh,
Her
God.
horn was glowing with magic that was being used on the towel, which would whip Rarity's rear again on command. Occasionally, Celestia's tentacle-like hair would slither down her sides and begin stroking itself along her chest and stomach. Then, glide way down in between her haunches and lightly apply pressure while making tight swirls against her coat. After that, they would gently glide up her body again while stroking against her neck and cheeks before returning back down to repeat the motion again.
well, at least she's not
Rarity
sticking her hair in her
squirmed and
mouth this time.
grunted
I
loudly.
know, that's so
Very
wrong.
unladylike. The feeling of her flank tingling with pain, yet the sensation from her horn broadcasting waves of pleasure across her body. She tried her best to resist, but it did not take long for the first moan to escape from her lips. The feeling of pain and pleasure combining in her body made her mind scramble, unable to process anything except the sensations forcing their way through it. She moaned again as Celestia began to suck on her horn once more. Magic lightly began seeping from her horn, Rarity quickly losing control of even her most basic functions. Her legs also began to shake. First her rear legs, and then her front, quivering while in midair while her body was sweating profusely. The towel whipped her again, and instead of a pain-induced grunt, she moaned once more, unable to differentiate pain from being anything other than pleasure anymore. It was as if the actions most negative towards her were now turning into some of the most exciting things ever. Her legs forced apart and into one place, though discomforting at first, seemed to provide a clean passage for her body to feel the full force of the satisfying waves passing through her. Her rear, which though being whipped roughly, provided a sort of counterbalance in the first part of the DV's connection now reacting inside her. The feeling of her horn brought the second, adding... What? The feeling of her horn brought the
These things are
second,
dangerous.
adding the most thrilling and wonderful
don't
feeling
mess
she
with
had
them unless
ever
you're a
faced
professional
with,
like me.
and pushing it through her body. When they met in the center, her inside seemed to explode with an uncontrollably pleasurable hotness that streamed through her blood to every part of her being. It was so
Oh, boy.
maddening, but at the same time, it was all so good. My word, Celestia, Rarity choked out, barely able to say anything, let alone make intellectual sense of the situation. She was quickly hushed when a large glob of Celestia's hair swirled in front of her and probed itself into her mouth, sliding in
again.
deep and down towards her throat. At the same time, Celestia began to move her hooves down lower, now sliding them under her and between her arms,
Seriously, what the fuck is with
stroking in
hair?
firm and rhythmic fashion as she began to suck on the horn once more in the same rhythm. This continued for several minutes before Rarity finally found herself losing consciousness and blacking out from the
passed out.
overwhelming sensations boiling up and then
That's no
exploding
surprise,
over
she
and over
usually
inside of her.
passes out to everything.
After giving a final hearty moan and finally passing out in her restraint, Celestia gently undid the knots and lowered her to the ground, letting her lay as a hot, sweaty mess on the floor. Celestia had to admit she was surprised the elegant marshmallow-like one lasted so long.
Marshmallow-like.
Still,
good way to put her coat, I guess.
Yes.
5 places down. 1 more to go.
Only place left is Fluttershy's cottage.
Has this happened before? Luna asked, dumbfounded by what the captain of the Royal Guards was telling her. Yes, it has. A secret such as this, however, is only known to the most trustworthy subjects under Celestia, me being one of them. Though it hasn't happened in hundreds of years, Celestia made sure that a small number of ponies were involved in the generation so that they could help solve this crisis should it arise again.
Excuse me.
I see, Luna said, looking down and thinking briefly. After a moment, she raised her head towards the guard captain again, a worried twinkle in her eye. So, what happens next? What will Celestia do now that her, what was it? Through the years, a few of us who know came to call her Molestia as some sort of a side joke. So that's what we go with now. Yes. Well, what will Molestia do now that she is free? According to the previous incident, she will go out and seek those closest to her and try to get as much sexual pleasure out from them as possible. Once finished, she will then proceed to go out and molest nearly anyone and everyone she can, even going as far as the point of ordering some guards to aid her.
What?
That's terrible. How do we stop her? The only way we can get her back to normal is if we seal the part of her that's responsible for this back into the furthest depths of her mind.
How the fuck you gonna do that?
However, we need a unicorn pony adept in spells and deal with illusions, magical mechanics with magic, and also sealing spells in order to pull it up.
Say that slower next time.
Right.
I'm guessing you're gonna have to
Maybe I should
get
go down and try and find a spell book with the right spell. That won't be necessary, ma'am. We already have an agent with the abilities needed for the task.
Agent?
She's recruited by one of Candlelock's greatest magical minds several months ago. And she's already proven herself very skilled in many of the diverse fields of magic.
So it's not Twilight.
Oh.
Trixie.
Well, that's great.
I swear to God, if that's who it is, I swear to God.
Well,
I hate her and love her at the same time.
Most likely asleep. So we'll have to wake her up. However, she has made it painfully clear not to, the guard captain paused momentarily, clearing his throat as if preparing to recite something he was taught, forcefully by the sound of it. Sometime in the past. She doesn't particularly enjoy others disturbing her great, powerful slumber. End part 4.
Trixie! Wait, let's see what it says.
So it seems as if the great and powerful Trixie...
Hey, that was perfect! Perfect accent!
You get to borrow the song Screwdriver, Ace Cod.
Bro hoof.
You get to borrow the Screwdriver, Ace Cod. Why does that thing keep opening?
That was the perfect accent there, Ace Cod. Okay, we're gonna continue this in part 8 later on. See you, ponies.